You ever notice how the phrase, "I'm fine," has become the most suspicious sentence in the English language? Like, someone asks how you're doing, and you say, "I'm fine," but your voice does that thing where it goes up at the end, almost like you're asking a question instead of making a statement. And suddenly, everyone knows you're definitely not fine. It's wild, right? Two simple words that have somehow evolved into the emotional equivalent of a smoke signal saying, "Please don't ask follow-up questions." But here's what's fascinating. Psychologically speaking, when we say, "I'm fine," we're rarely lying outright. We're doing something far more complicated, something that reveals how our brains navigate social connection, self-protection, and the exhausting performance of just existing in the world. So let me take you inside what's actually happening when those words leave your mouth, because it's not simple. It's never simple with humans. First off, "I'm fine" is what psychologists call a defensive communication pattern, but not in the way you might think. You're not necessarily being defensive in an aggressive sense. You're creating a boundary, and your brain is doing it for a very specific reason. See, when you're genuinely struggling, whether it's anxiety, sadness, overwhelm, or just the weight of 17 different things going wrong at once, your nervous system is already maxed out. It's like your internal battery is at 3% and someone just asked you to explain why it's dying. The energy required to articulate what you're actually feeling, to translate the messy chaos inside your head into coherent sentences, to make yourself vulnerable and then manage the other person's reaction to your vulnerability, that's not 3% energy. That's like 40% energy. So your brain does a cost-benefit analysis in about half a second and goes, "Nope, we're conserving resources. Deploy the I'm fine protocol." And here's where it gets interesting. There's this concept in psychology called emotional granularity, which is basically your ability to identify and label your emotions with precision. Research by Lisa Feldman Barrett and others has shown that most of us operate with pretty low emotional granularity most of the time. We know we feel bad, but we can't quite pinpoint if it's disappointment or frustration or grief or just existential dread. It's all kind of swirling together in this vague cloud of not great. So when someone asks how you are, and you genuinely don't have the words yet because you haven't even figured it out yourself, "I'm fine" becomes the placeholder. It's not dishonesty, it's verbal buffering. Your emotional processing is still loading. But then there's another layer, and this one's about social conditioning. From the time we're kids, we learn that "how are you" isn't really a question, it's a greeting. It's social lubricant. The expected response is, "Good, how are you?" And then you both move on with your lives. Nobody actually wants the real answer in the grocery store checkout line or when you're passing a coworker in the hallway. We've been trained to perform okayness because society functions more smoothly when we do. Researcher Brené Brown talks about this as armoring up, this protective mechanism where we hide our struggles behind a veneer of fineness because vulnerability feels too risky, too uncertain. What if they judge me? What if they can't handle it? What if I burden them? What if they use it against me later? These aren't irrational fears. They're learned from experience. And sometimes "I'm fine" is actually an act of self-preservation in the truest sense. When you're dealing with someone who has consistently invalidated your feelings, dismissed your struggles, or turned your vulnerability into ammunition, your brain remembers. It pattern matches, and it protects you by shutting down the possibility of harm before it happens. That's not being closed off. That's being smart. Your nervous system is literally keeping you safe. But here's the paradox that makes this whole thing so painful. We say "I'm fine" to protect ourselves from the energy drain of explaining, from the risk of vulnerability, from social awkwardness, but what we often desperately want is for someone to see through it. We want someone to gently call our bluff, to say, "No, really, what's going on?" and actually stick around for the answer. We want to be known without having to do the exhausting work of making ourselves known. And that's the human condition right there, isn't it? We want connection, but we're terrified of what it costs. There's actually neuroscience behind this push-pull dynamic. When we're stressed or overwhelmed, our amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, becomes hyperactive. It's scanning for danger, and sometimes emotional exposure feels like danger. Meanwhile, our prefrontal cortex, the part that handles rational thought and communication, actually goes a bit offline. This is why when you're really upset, you sometimes can't find the words, even if you want to. Your brain has literally deprioritized language processing in favor of survival mode. So "I'm fine" might be all you can access in that moment, even if deeper down you're screaming for help. And let's be real, sometimes "I'm fine" is just true enough. Like, you're not fine, but you're functional. You're fine in the sense that you're not actively falling apart right this second. You're fine relative to how bad things could be. It's fine on a gradient, not an absolute. And that's actually okay. You don't owe everyone the full depth of your inner world. Some people have earned that access, and some haven't. Some moments call for authenticity, and some just call for getting through the day. So what does "I'm fine" really mean? It means you're human. It means you're navigating the impossible balance between connection and self-protection, between being seen and being safe, between the energy you have and the energy everything requires. It means you're doing your best with the resources available to you in that moment. And sometimes your best is just 2 words and a smile, and that's enough. The question isn't whether you should stop saying "I'm fine." The question is, are you saying it to people who've earned your honesty? Are you giving yourself permission to not be fine? And are you listening when other people say it to you? Because now you know what it really means. And maybe that changes how you hear it next time.